This is Survival Nation, an open-world online survival game with light RPG elements that was designed for VR headsets. Guys, this is currently out now for the PCVR over on Steam, but is also coming to Quest 2 this May 4th and eventually headed to the PSVR 2. We have both put the PC and Quest 2 versions of the game through their paces, and we have a lot to talk about, so stick around and find out if this is worth your time and money. Hey guys, it's Chris from the VR Grid and welcome to the channel. If you like this video, give it a like, and if you're interested in more VR content from us, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss new videos as they drop. And if you're looking to join our VR conversations, feel free to leave a comment, or even better, join us each and every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific here for the Virtual Boys podcast. Okay, so jumping right into things here. For those looking at this game for some meaningful story or character development, you are not going to find that here. Story is essentially non-existent outside of the setup that you are a new survivor looking to join a camp and be helpful. Well, of course, getting acquainted with your fellow survivors who are about as cookie-cutter generic as they get. Now, whether you choose to go solo here or join up with 3 other friends in the game's optional co-op mode, the core game is the same, with each player playing at their own pace and completing quests in their own game. As that being the case, you never formally team up for quests with friends, nor do you fight for scavenged loot, and instead, you just more decide to hang out and help each other along with each other's quest lines, offering a helping hand in the form of an extra gun for hire, or deciding to give a friend some useful supplies or weaponry. Personally, I actually liked this approach, as I like to do my own thing progression-wise, but with a game like this, especially with its very rinse and repeat mission structure, it is often more fun with a friend or two along to shoot the shit and some zombies along the way. Now, I'll get back into that with more detail with the missions in a bit, but having established the fact that the solo and co-op experience is much the same here, I want to get to the core gameplay, and that is the survival part. While never going as deep into the survival genre as something like Green Hell, or for that matter, even Song in the Smoke, I would still caution those with little patience for survival mechanics in games to be aware that the word survival in this game's title is there for a reason, as right from the get-go, you're going to need to deal with food and water needs. Your hydration needs can be met by keeping a full canteen on hand or cracking open a scavenged cola, whereas food is gathered in a multitude of ways, like fishing, hunting, gathering, or scouring abandoned houses. Now, note that I love survival games and typically enjoy the added complexity of keeping my character's basic needs met. And Survival Nation keeps things very simple here, offering a lot of options to shove some calories in your face, but you will need to keep a near constant eye on these levels, especially in those early parts of the game before you've leveled up your character a bit, as your ability to regenerate health is directly connected to keeping your water and food levels up. Thankfully though, the game handles the management of these systems well enough, with the implementation of a watch that, when looked at, helpfully brings up a quick overview of all your health needs, as well as letting you know your XP progression and your gold stores. Essentially, everything you need to know on the go. Like I said, very helpful. The addition of 2 customizable and expandable item wheels activated on your right hand manages the rest of your on-the-go item needs, with one wheel being used for weapons and the other for various consumables such as food, Molotov cocktails, your water canteen, or really anything that you determine to be essential for quick access. Now, as for storage of scavenged loot and other collectibles, players can simply drop items over their shoulder into a backpack, Saints and Sinners style. However, to access collected items, players must access that inventory menu, which is located in the game's primary pop-up menu. Here, players can not only manage their inventory levels, but also access the game's crafting system, character upgrade trees, world map, and quest journal. It certainly isn't the most VR solution to these game mechanics, but I thought it worked really well and was simple to navigate. Now, taking a deeper look at these game systems at play, Survival Nation does flex its RPG side of things with the implementation of 3 skill trees: combat, survival, and endurance. Upgrade points are awarded through XP gain, and XP is awarded for both completing quests, but also for simply killing zombies, which is nice considering that's what you're going to be doing a lot of the time. Now, the 3 skill trees aren't too deep, and I had them maxed far before I hit the end point of the game, but I will say that unlike similar games with skill tree progression, Survival Nation does a nice job of making these unlocks, or upgrades if you will, feel meaningful, and they actually make a difference in the gameplay here. These were upgrades I really wanted, like slowing hunger and water depletion, the ability to hold more weapons, increasing my backpack storage, and well, you get the idea. Now moving on to the game's inventory system, you will see that it separates your gear and backpack items into easy to navigate submenus, which also translates into the game's simple but still useful crafting system. Crafting recipes are unlocked through progression and allow you to craft such things as healing and stamina tonics, as well as a variety of explosives, and even the ability to build a campfire to cook up food on the go. And like essentially every game mechanic in Survival Nation, inventory management and crafting is fairly basic, but it is an essential part of the gameplay loop. So I would strongly recommend putting upgrade points into increasing your backpack carrying capacity early on in your playthrough. Now, that brings us to the core of the game and its quest system. Let me ask you, do you like fetch quests? Because that is Survival Nation when it comes to quests, missions, errands, challenges, or really whatever. Because starting off in your camp, Survival Nation essentially plays like a game that never really gets out of tutorial mode, as it has you going from camp resident to camp resident, doing odd jobs like collecting a thing they lost. Think of a character going, "Hey, how you doing? I think I lost my saw at the sawmill area. Do you think you can go out there and clear out those zombies and bring me back my saw? I'd be much appreciative of that." Then you do that thing, bring it back to him, and then you get your next quest. "Hey, you know what? I sure would like some things to make another thing." You get the point. Yeah, and all of these quests basically also involve clearing out a zombie area that will respawn about 3 minutes later. Now, of course, completing these missions will also offer up some new gameplay options such as fishing or metal detecting, but this really just ends up being more make-work challenges to add to your quest list and gives you a reason to walk into the game's path-based open world and collect items, kill more zombies, gain XP, and level up. It's all super basic and generic, and it makes a Ubisoft open world game look like a grand design in comparison. Making matters worse, the open world itself really lacks anything to make it interesting. Yes, the game throws in treasure hunts and a lot of find this thing type missions, but there's little reason to actually explore this world. There's no secret areas, loot stashes, or really anything to make exploration worth it. Now, all these complaints being said, I couldn't stop playing it. Hell, they might as well have renamed this game Carrot on a Stick, for no matter how many times I slowly walked back and forth along the same trails, killing the same pack of respawn zombies, I kept playing it, if just to level up one more time, or get just a bit more money or resources so I could buy that new gun, just to keep playing and leveling up said gun. Nothing, and I mean nothing about this game is great, but it was all good enough to keep me going. And speaking of nothing great, let's talk about combat here in Survival Nation, as you'll be doing a lot of killing during your time in here. Essentially, just a thing you must deal with here in the game. Killing zombies is not exactly a matter of skill or stealth, or for that matter, even fun, as it is rather more a matter of ensuring you just don't tread into areas with zombies that are leveled above your weapon's capabilities. And don't go into this expecting that weighty physics of Saints and Sinners melee combat, as here Survival Nation opts for more of a Wagglefest style of hand-to-hand combat, as you play whack-a-mole with the horde and keep them at a distance long enough to swat them down. Now, of course, beating zombies down is never going to be not fun, but it gets pretty generic here pretty fast, and that's even with the different varieties of zombies. Fortunately, range combat fares slightly better once you get past that starting bow and arrow that simply feels limp and toy-like. Pretty quickly, the gun options open up though, and things get a bit better with a nice selection of handguns, shotguns, and assault rifles, all of which can be leveled up to increase their stopping power. Now, you would think that in a zombie survival game, going loud with guns all the time would be a bad idea, as it would bring the hordes down. Well, not here in Survival Nation, as the game's zombie system is pretty basic, and it seems to be primarily based around small little groups spaced out and huddled together. So wiping them out as I went along guns blazing was really the easiest way to go about my travels. And with ammo being cheaply bought and easy to stock up on, ammo conservation also wasn't really a thing here, which, yeah, kind of ruins the balance of a survival game, and it actually made melee combat a waste of time after only a few hours of playtime. Unfortunately, the gunplay just isn't a ton of fun either, and it really comes off only serviceable with fairly generic feeling guns and a reload mechanic that feels ripped out of Population 1, but with a bit of jank that often made reloads tough under pressure. Gunplay is also made worse by the generic, unsatisfying way zombies take damage. It's definitely not the worst I've played, mind you, but there really isn't much going on here other than a blood splatter and the zombie falling to the ground, only to disappear a few seconds later. The problem is, it's just also paint-by-numbers cheap zombie game, and it's hard to sit through after playing the likes of Saints and Sinners and Resident Evil 8. On the visual side of things, one can instantly tell that Survival Nation was designed with the Quest 2 in mind, with a visual style that once again reminded me quite a bit of Population 1 with that's not so quite cartoon visual style, but also not really a gritty world look either. Now, much of the footage we have captured is of the PC version, as it definitely is the nicer version to play, sporting an improved draw distance, less pop-in, improved textures, and a more robust lighting system. However, like I said, it certainly still looks like it was a Quest game first and simply upscaled for PC. And given that the recommended PC specs ask for a 2060 and the game still had pop-in and a few performance issues on my 3080, I can't help but feel that the PC version was across the board not a priority here. Now, as for the Quest 2 version, I think the game looks just fine given the hardware. There is a much softer visual look to the Quest version though when compared to the PC, as the Quest version certainly sees a sharp detail drop off in areas like the ground when you get to about 30 or 40 feet out. This isn't very obvious when you're looking at these social screen captures, but trust me, it's very apparent when you're in the headset. Like I said, there's more pop in here as well in the Quest 2 version, and texture quality does take a bit of a hit. But on the whole, Survival Nation on Quest fares pretty well when compared to the PC version, and players playing co-op cross-platform will be getting essentially the same experience to each other. However, I can't say that the bar is incredibly high here either, for while Survival Nation might be impressive visually for a small open world title running on the Quest, it suffers from weak character models, poor zombie animations, and most noticeably, a very simple and yes, generic feeling open world, with little to differentiate one area from the next, other than some basic landmarks and then the eventual lead into more urban areas south of the map. Additionally, there's no day-night cycle and no weather, so the game starts to feel very samey rather quickly. A point that is driven home even more so given how much backing and forthing that you will be doing through the same areas. On the audio side of things, Survival Nation once again suffers from what is becoming all too common an issue these days in VR, as it comes off overwhelmingly generic. From its repetitive soundtrack and weak weapon sounds to generic zombie effects and lack of world sounds, everything here just feels very paint by numbers and empty, lacking any real personality or originality. And I know I've said this before with other games, but it feels like the developers rated a stock sound vault and just called it a day. The voice acting here, though, is actually not horrible, but the NPCs never have anything interesting to say, and I found myself often just walking off, leaving them mumbling to themselves once I had the quest in hand. Now, for those looking to play co-op, just a heads up that the game uses an in-game proximity chat system, meaning that if you're within about a 30-foot radius of each other, you can hear each other clearly. However, once you leave this area, it essentially just mutes you. Now, this makes sense to me, say, in an open lobby situation, but given that this is just 4-player co-op, I think most people will be grouped with friends and will want constant contact, making this a rather broken system to me for friends looking to hang out and just do their own quests. And that brings me to my final thoughts and review score. There is absolutely nothing great about Survival Nation. Heck, it's not even much of a survival game now that I think of it, outside of being thirsty or hungry or getting love licked by a zombie. There's no weather, no day-night cycle, no base building, and you can't really get hurt or sick. There's no real story, nor are there any real interesting missions to go on. The open world is bland, and everything about the game, from its visuals to its sounds, is generic and uninspired. However, Survival Nation, when taken as a whole package, does still pack in a lot of simple ideas and wraps them up in a fairly polished progression system that I did find some fun in despite all these shortcomings, and it oddly kept me coming back for more. Well, at least it did until I hit about the 7-hour mark of doing the same things over and over again. Bringing a friend or 3 along to help fish, climb, hunt, and bash zombie heads definitely helps keep the game fresh, but with easily 15 plus hours of fetch quests and make work tasks, the game does run out of ideas within its first few hours and simply lacks any real depth in any of its systems or story to really keep players engaged. The VR Grid gives Survival Nation a 6.5 out of 10. Games of this size and scope are rare to find in VR, I know, and especially on the Quest, so I can still see many of you being tempted to take this game for a spin. Just keep your expectations in check, and remember, you can always refund it if you're within the time limit. Anyways, guys, that's it for us. If you like this video, please hit that like button, and if you're not already subscribed, hopefully we've earned your subscription. As always, we will catch you on the next video.